Deck the halls with boughs of holly, fa la 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 la. 'Tis the season to be jolly, fa la 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 la. Don we now our gay apparel, fa la 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 la. Troll the ancient Yuletide carol, fa la 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 la. See the blazing Yule before us, fa la 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 la.
This is the December 22nd, 2020 meeting of the Acushnet Public Library Board of Trustees. I am opening the meeting by roll call vote. Once I call your name, please respond here. Diane?
Here.
Nancy?
Here.
Steve?
Here.
Jerry?
Here.
Danielle?
Here.
And myself, Jennifer Alves, and we are all participating remotely. We also have Dina Brasser, the director of the library, on the call as well. We are being audio taped and videotaped. We do have a quorum. And the first order of business on today's agenda is the review and approval of the December 1st, 2020 minutes. Does anybody have any questions or comments on those? No? All right. We need a motion.
Motion to
Make a-
accept.
Second.
All in favor by roll call. Diane?
Aye.
Nancy?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Jerry?
Aye.
Danielle?
Aye.
Myself, aye. Thank you. Next is the budget.
I sent you all on Friday a snapshot of our current budgets report. We're at 46.1% spent out in salaries. That is correct. The formulas are correct now. And we're at 72.6% in operating for a total of 51.2% of this year's budget. So halfway through the fiscal year, that's about where you want to be. So unless you have any specific questions about anything, I think everything's pretty status quo.
Anybody have any questions? Okay, we need a motion.
Make a motion to accept the budget report.
Second it.
All in favor by roll call. Diane?
Aye.
Nancy?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Jerry?
Aye.
Danielle?
Aye.
Aye for myself. Thank you. Old business, we have the reopening plan.
Yeah. So as you all are aware, as of last Monday, December 14th, per the Board of Selectmen, we are now working with a skeleton crew in the library. Patrons are getting the same services that they were getting since June, you know, the takeout, sort of on-demand printing, copying, faxing, computers by appointment. We haven't cut anything. We haven't cut any of the hours of service. The only difference is we just have 2 to 3 people in the building at a time. So far, I mean, we're only a week in, but it is working. And we'll just keep doing the best that we can to make it work so that we do not have to impact public service. The staff are making up hours that they're not working in-house at home, and that seems to be going pretty well too. You know, I think you probably get it from, you know, work that you might do remotely. Remote work is not for everyone. It's a challenge when you are, you know, your role is customer based to shift to at-home work when your customers aren't at your house. And we don't have, you know, things set up where someone else, you know, you can answer the phone remotely for the library. But the staff is really, like, once again, the same way they were in the spring. You know, we're working together and everyone's coming up with some innovative, useful projects that they can do at home. And, I appreciate once again that everyone's been able to step up in that way. So that's our reopening update.
I just had a question.
Sure.
Is that how you operated in the spring?
In the spring, no one was in the building at all except for our custodian, and I would go in 2 days a week, but none of the other staff went into the building in the spring.
Okay.
So until like May, and then we started having people go back, like sort of work half at home, half remote until takeout. And when takeout started in June, everyone came back full hours in the building.
Okay.
So now it's for the part-timers, it's sort of half and half. They're working half their hours at home and half in the building. So if you only work 8 hours a week, you're 4 hours in the building, 4 hours at home. Some of the part-timers really do not like working from home. So they wanted to do more like 3/4 in the building and 1/4 at home. And we could make that work while also keeping it to 2 to 3 people in a building at a time. So we're sort of broken up into 2 teams. So Team A just works Mondays, Tuesdays, and 1 Saturday. And then Team B works Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and the other Saturdays. And, so far, so good. If one of us is to get sick, which I hope doesn't happen, we've been very fortunate so far, but if one of us is to test positive for COVID or needs to quarantine, then hopefully the goal of doing this is so that we wouldn't have to shut down the library altogether, because we will have limited our close contacts. And I've got to say, even before we went to this schedule, we're pretty good about not being close contacts anyway in the building. We've got a really big building and we're able to spread out, and our staff has been great all along about wearing masks when we're in the building at all times, and following the 6 feet or more of distance. We've been doing that all along. We're not in an office where we need to be, our desks are right near each other. We're able to spread out. So, this is through, as of right now, through Monday, January 11th. And then I'm sure we'll find out the week before that if the Board of Selectmen have decided to extend this part of in-house service. Hi, Nancy.
Yes, Dina, I would just like to congratulate you on what an outstanding solution that was. When I read your email, I thought that was really excellent. By splitting your staff in 2 groups, you're not faced with total shutdown. So
Right.
if you're the person who thought of that, outstanding. It was excellent.
I'll say that in the spring, when we were starting to come back, the idea of splitting, there's so few of us. I mean, there's 8 of us in the in-person rotation. We also have a custodian, but he adjusted his hours, so he's never in the building when we are. Aside from 1 hour a week, he and I are in the building at the same time. But in the spring, when the idea had kind of been floated, around amongst the staff of doing teams or cohorts or whatever you want to call them, that seemed very daunting to me because our staff is mainly part-time with 8 hours, 12 hours, 16 hours, 19 hours. It just seemed way too complicated. But when I heard from the town administrator that the Board of Selectmen really were encouraging doing something like this, I was actually on vacation, as you know, and when I got that call, and so I went off vacation for a day and sat down with a lot of pieces of paper to figure out how do we make this work. So it just worked. It just worked, and I appreciate the compliment, but I also appreciate that the staff was willing to immediately, with just a few days notice, switch up their regular schedules. I tried to keep people as close to what they would normally work as possible. But some people are, do have differences in the hours, and they're all making it work. So I really appreciate that. We got a good team at the library. So,
Yep.
So yeah, thank you. So that's all of our reopening status.
Anybody have anything else? Any questions, comments, anything? No? All right, well, we'll move on to new business. We have the FY22 draft budget.
So, it's so hard in the midst of all this to plan for the future because the future seems, just so uncertain. But we did get the memo last week, as I knew it was coming, for the FY22 budget. And I sat down. I'd sort of already been plugging some numbers in anyway, but I was waiting for the memo from the town accountant's office to find out what exactly the expectations were from the town for us this year. And they are calling for a level funded budget, which is not a surprise. As you'll remember in the spring, we had submitted one budget that had, we thought was going to work for FY21. And then we found out we had to, make some cuts, and we cut it by about 10%, I think. And then now we're being asked to level fund that budget for FY22. So I came up with a few different scenarios and some background information, which I sent to both Nancy and Steve, because they're our finance committee for the trustees, and they reviewed what I sent, and then I made some more revisions and just went back to them, and also then got some additional feedback from the town accountant. So what I've sent you is what I would like to submit to the town. It's as close to level funded as I feel we can get, while also meeting our municipal appropriation requirement from the state. The MAR, and the municipal appropriation requirement, or the MAR for short, is one of the key pieces of our state certification. And I'm going to keep repeating this in probably every meeting we have for a really long time, that it is key that we keep our state certification. I'm sure, going to be facing a very difficult time financially, personally, professionally. The country will just be extremely impacted for a while to come as a result of COVID. So keeping our state certification and doing whatever we need to do to keep that will be very important to the people who use our library, to our residents, and to other members of the community. So in order to meet the MAR, we have to look at the past 3 fiscal years' budgets, put those all together, divide them by 3, and then times that by 1.025 to get what the MAR is. So our MAR for FY22 is $277,000, $277,973. Yeah, it's so hard to say that, but you know what you have it on paper. You know what I'm saying. It's a lot of money. And so the budget that I've submitted to you, I believe, is $144 more than that, at $278,117. You'll see that we've got some slight reductions in the salary line. That does not impact anybody's current rate. You'll remember that this fiscal year we did have an employee right before the fiscal year resign, and then we were able to promote an existing employee into that position, which had a few more hours, but her rate of pay didn't change. And she's making less than the person who had been in the position prior, because she's been with us for less time. So we were able to cut a little bit from that library tech line, but that will have no impact on our current staff members. No one's getting a reduction in pay. It's just we need a little less in that line. We also had to increase the longevity line, because as of next fiscal year, we currently have 3 employees who have been with us for more than 5 years. As of next fiscal year, we'll have 2 employees who have been with the library for 10 years, and 4 more employees who will have been 5 years or more. So the longevity is seeing an increase because we're keeping our employees, which is, to me, really great. So, I'm happy that they get a little benefit for that. So of course, there is more money needed for that longevity line. And then I did bump a little bit of money down into the expense line, as you'll see. We have to increase the sales expense line. We have no choice. That's just the contract with sales. So that did increase by a little over $200. It's a 2% increase, and we typically face that every year. And I also moved about $1,000 into the 551000, the other supplies, which is how we purchase our material, to try to build that back up. So anyway, overall, it's a 0.1% increase. I think it's pretty close to being level funded, and I think that Nancy and Steve agree with me on that. They can certainly weigh in too if they would like. But we'll, I'm confident with this one. We meet the MAR, we'll meet everything that we need to, and in terms of paying people. They did ask us not to increase, to plug in any increases for hourly rates or for salary, staff members who are paid annually, like are with a salary instead of an hourly rate, because they haven't worked out any contracts yet. The union contract is up June 30th, and they don't know, the Board of Selectmen haven't voted as to whether or not to increase non-union staff yet. So that's why you're seeing the numbers for director and the patron services associate level. So we may find that will need to be adjusted at some point, but as of right now, that's one of the things they asked us to do within the memo. And if you approve this, it'll go to town accountant and the town administrator. I'll meet with them at some point to review things with them. And then at some point in January, we will be called for the finance committee. And I imagine at that time, we'll be meeting with them through Zoom, I would think. So, and any questions for me? I know that's a lot of information to take in from someone who's trying to explain math, who's not a math whiz, so.
You did great, Dana.
Thank you.
You did a good job.
I say all the time, I did not become a librarian because I'm good at math. Like, that's not, who knew there was so much math in librarianship, but there is.
Math is the only subject that counts.
Yeah. But I'm
you.
shanked, I like that.
Anybody have any questions or comments for the budget?
I think it's excellent, Dana.
Yeah, very good job.
I think it's about as level funded as you can possibly be. That was
Right.
pretty close. That was really good.
Right, level funded, but then also keeping us, that MAR is something that's always on my mind. So, and, that, like I said, that's a key piece of the state certification. So we for sure want to at least be over what that requirement is.
Absolutely.
And this is the closest we've been under my directorship. We over the past 5 years, the town's been, really great to us. Yesterday was our 5-year anniversary of moving or opening on Middle Road. So it was 5 years yesterday. And when we went to the finance committee the following spring, before town meeting, we were asking for additional staff because we became so much busier than we were at the old location, and we needed more people on board. And they were able to make that work for us. And then the following year, we needed a little bit more again. And then the year after that, they approved us adding a Tech 3 children's room assistant position. So every year we've been doing really well. So it's a little daunting, to be honest, to be this close to what the requirement is. But we're at least meeting the requirement. And at the end of the day, that's what counts. So, but hopefully we'll be able to build back up over time so that we're not as close.
Yeah. All right, we need a motion to accept the budget.
Move we
Motion
accept.
to accept the budget. I'll second.
All in favor by roll call. Diane,
Aye.
Nancy,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Jerry,
Aye.
Danielle,
Aye.
myself, aye. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll submit that. And if I need to come back with any updates, I'll certainly, come back as soon as we can to discuss any modifications or things that need to be addressed. And I'll keep you posted about, when FinCom will happen.
Sounds good.
All right.
Next order of new business is whether or not to remain fine-free after the end of this year.
So the first thing I want to say about this is ultimately no one wants fines. You know, a public librarian does not become a public librarian again to charge people money for using the library. The point of the library is it's a free resource. The fines are in place to encourage people to return the items in a timely manner. So that's why we have the fine system. I mean, as you know, it's 5 cents a day for books and audiobooks and magazines at our library. And it's 25 cents a day for DVDs and CDs. So these are really modest fees that we're charging. There's a cap of $2 for books, audiobooks, and magazines. So no one's ever charged more than $2, even if the item comes back months later. And there's a cap of, I believe it's $5 for the DVDs and CDs. So I hope I make it really clear that we're not looking to make money off of anyone who uses our library. However, the town did agree in 2017, I believe, to allow us to keep the fine money in a revolving fund. And the revolving fund is made up of fines and other fees, such as what the fees we collect for printing and for faxing. And we also, when we receive money for lost books, that makes up the revolving fund too. So, and then the revolving fund is used to help make up the difference of what we need to spend again for state certification. We need to spend 16% of our budget on material for direct patron use. This fiscal year, we only have about $22,000 through the budget to pay for that. We need about $44,000. So the $20,000 needs to come from somewhere, and the revolving fund is one piece of how we make up the difference. So it's excellent that we have our revolving fund. Of course, not much is going into the revolving fund because we're not collecting fines, which I also want to say I think is great that you all agreed to suspend the fines back in June for this time period. I think it's, you know, I asked you to do it, and so I fully support that you did it. But if we're talking about material that was checked out prior to March, we've given people a lot of time to return that material. You know, when anything that was checked out prior to March, we worked with the sales network all spring to extend due dates. The final due date ended up being July 31st, which you might remember. We had opened in June for takeout. As of August, our book drop's been open 24/7. Anyone who has overdue items has now received at least 2 emails or 2 phone calls or 2 text messages from, and I'm talking about items prior to March, or as of December, a letter from us as of December 4th, I believe it was, indicating that they still have items out from end of 2019, beginning of 2020. We now have 150 items back, so that's great news. We only have 150 items left from prior to closing in March, so that's great. The list was at about 800 in August, and now it's at 150. So we appreciate that people have returned the items, and again, we're not charged any kind of late fees. But as of today, we have 259 overdue items, and that does not include those 150 items that are now considered assumed lost that were checked out before March. So these are items that have been checked out since June that are now overdue. Of the 259, 157 of those have been due within the last 7 days. So they're still sitting in quarantine, and if they've been returned and we haven't checked them in. So even if we gave the benefit of the doubt that we've gotten those 157 items back in the last week, we still have 102 items unaccounted for. So all that said, do you continue to not charge any kind of fines? I feel like it's a total goodwill gesture to remain fine-free. Or do we want to get this material back into circulation in a more timely fashion and start charging fines again, hoping that people will just return them by the due date and then they won't have any fines at all? It's important to say, of course, that they will not be charged for the quarantine period. that 7-day quarantine period, the staff and I will make sure that if we do check something in, we deduct for the 7-day quarantine period. So no one will be penalized for the quarantine period. I hope that goes without saying. I mean, that's our imposed, time period. So obviously we wouldn't be charging people for that. But if your item was due December 1st and it was checked in on December 22nd, then obviously it was overdue before it went to quarantine. So again, I totally know this is a lot of information, and I guess the bottom line is, do you want to start feeding the revolving fund and charging fines, or do you think that we should just remain fine-free for the time being? As I let you know, there's a mix within the network of what other libraries are doing and or why they're doing it. And there's 70 some odd libraries in the network, and I only heard back from 10. So, I don't know what all the others are doing. But I think it's an interesting discussion to have, and whatever you all decide to do, the staff and I will fully support whatever it is you decide. But I do really want to stress that even if you agree, or even if you decide to start collecting fines again, I think it's really important for people to understand it's not like the library's trying to make money off of anyone. So, we'd rather you just return the stuff on time, and then we, wouldn't have to deal with this at all. So, thoughts, comments, opinions? Yes, Nancy, hi.
I have serious mixed feelings over this. I think
Sure.
I do understand how difficult this whole COVID thing is on everybody, and adding fines to it, I have a problem with. The however piece is, it really, out of sight, out of mind. People forget they've got the book, or, and it is important to get the books back in circulation. And, especially when we've waived fines since, we opened again in June. So it's troubling. You have 259 items that, we're certainly stopped worrying about it maybe.
Right.
The other side is, I also think right now, I know myself, I'm trying to get through a 700-page book I've already had for a month, and I will not get through it. It's due again this week. There's too much going on with Christmas, and none of us have had the time to sit and read, I think. So maybe there's some meeting ground here where we can, give people a little more time, maybe through January, and not end the fines January 1st. But I do see the need to, try to make people realize we need the books back. We're not trying to penalize you. We just want our books so someone else can read them.
Mm-hmm.
That's my thought.
To add to what you just said, Nancy, we do hear from people a lot. Like right now, the patrons are receiving either a phone call, an email, or a text message from the network, not from us, from the network. They get this message at 14 days overdue and at 56 days overdue. So they're hearing from the network. But when we're calling people to say, you have a hold that's come in, we want to schedule a pickup, we're looking at their account. So we'll say, oh, by the way, do you still have, what such and such? And normally what we hear is, oh my gosh, yes, right. I totally forgot to return that. Oh, it's in the car, or it's, oh, I thought I did return it. Let me go check. And then sure enough, they, find it under someone's bed, or, like in on a bookshelf at home, or, mixed in with their own DVDs. A lot of times it's just that people have forgotten. But in the meantime, especially with new material, you could have somebody who's been waiting, weeks and weeks to get this and would have loved to get their hands on it, So, but just to add to what, this discussion, yes, we do hear that a lot of times. It's very innocent, and someone's just, it's not a malicious, thing to withhold our material. It's just that they've forgotten, and we all have a lot on our minds right now. There's, no doubt about that at all. So.
Well, we talked about the fact that the end is in sight and we're in mile 20, but maybe postponing it for a defined period of time
Mhm.
and either voting on again to reinstitute it might be something, at least now,
Mhm.
that I'd consider.
Yep, I agree.
That's what I was thinking too. I thought maybe until the end of June or the fiscal year, just as a gesture of goodwill, and then reconsider, and maybe by then things will be normal. It's not that much money that you're going to miss out on. And speaking from personal experience, we've had those phone calls in this house, and it does jog your memory and you get it back in. So I could go either way, but I think maybe hold off just because everybody does, things are different. Things are just different.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And again, this is totally a trustee's decision. This isn't a me decision. The revolving fund is the trustees' fund, essentially.
And if
Any,
need be, in the interim, we could have reevaluated if we decided, miraculously everything cleared, and, operations back to normal. I mean, that's a great expectation or hope, but would that be acceptable?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Diane, Danielle, do you have any thoughts?
I was just wondering, now when we return the books, do you take the book and you put it in quarantine before you check it back in?
correct. The purpose of doing that, the purpose of doing it in that moment, when we check a book in, we don't just scan it and toss it to the side. We
Yep.
flip it open to see if anyone's left anything inside of it. There's a lot
Yeah.
of handling that goes on. We're checking
Yeah.
for damage. So
Right.
I can't expect the staff to do that right now. Plus, we just don't have the setup with how we're taking returns at the window. We don't have the setup to check in
So
in that same moment. So again,
so it
when
looks
we-
like you haven't returned it. if
correct,
it's
but then
in quarantine.
when we scan it in, if we were charging fines, if we were doing that, we would backdate so that we were not charging you for those 7 days.
Okay.
So you're not going to be charged for the library's imposed 7-day quarantine period. There
All
would
right.
not be charges for that. It would be anything before those 7. If you were overdue before those 7 days, you would be charged. But in our mind, it would be like those 7 days hadn't happened, or it would look like that on the computer.
Okay.
Now, I mean, that's an interesting point. Some people are getting notices. They've returned something, and then they get a notice saying they have an item
I
overdue.
did.
But it clearly states in that notice that libraries are quarantining. So if you've returned within the last 7 days, your item is most likely still in quarantine. I mean, if we're you get that notice at day 56, because you get it at day 14 and day 56. If you get it at 56 and you returned it weeks and weeks ago, then there might be a problem. But
Yeah.
if you're getting that notice at day 14, that means you were overdue by a little bit, big deal. You were overdue by a couple of days, and then it's sitting in quarantine for
Yeah.
the 7 days. So, yeah, so there isn't really anything we can, we chose, we want to get those notices out. We canceled the day 7 notice because normally you would get a day 7 notice from the network. We asked the network to suspend day 7 notices because of the 7-day quarantine. But we figured, well, 14 will go with that, because if you're hearing it, if you're not hearing until day 56, then there could be a problem. At least if you're hearing at day 14 and it clearly saying your item's probably in quarantine. And we have people who call anyway, and we're very happy to calm them, their concerns, and let them know that, this isn't, we're not worried. We don't want you to worry. And, but where the message isn't from us, it's a generic message that the network is sending out. There's
Okay.
only so much personalization that can happen to it. So, but again, to get back to that, yes, you may have returned it. It may still look like it's overdue, but we're not charging anything. And if you were to decide that as of January 1st, we were charging fines, we would not charge people for that 7-day quarantine. There's no
Okay.
way. I even if you said to do it, I wouldn't do it. I'll be honest.
No.
Even if you said that, yeah, no, charge them. No, you just wouldn't know that we weren't doing it. But anyway,
Danielle, do you have any thoughts?
I think it makes most sense to hold off on fines for now. Honestly, it's so hard sometimes to get out of the house. Like sometimes I don't leave the house for days and days, and it's just not at the top of my priorities list. Like I don't think about returning books to the library if I'm not already going out. Like if I'm running errands, then I think like, oh, I have to stop at the library. Otherwise, it's awful to say, but it's not like at the forefront of things to do. As much as I like to get all the materials back in plenty of time, it's just not always possible right now.
Yeah, you're not alone in that. And I think it's important to have this, I mean, if our trustees feel this way, then, you know, chances are, I mean, you're representative of our, you know, our resident users. So, I mean, that's, right, like it's hard to, I can't argue with that at all. I totally get it. You know, I mean, we have staff members who are at the building regularly who forget to return things. So it's certainly, you know, but if from the trustees standpoint, if yes, you understand how hard it is from your own standpoint to do this right now, then right, how do we expect, you know, everyone to follow the normal rules? I mean, nothing's normal right now, so.
Right.
I have to say that I was torn because I can totally understand. I mean, the library for me is within walking distance. So I don't go anywhere most of the time, but I can completely understand. Like it takes me 2 seconds, but I'm also right here. So I'm not a very good example. But I also think that people make the time to go out to go to the library to get the material. So then why is it that they can't bring it back? So I am torn, and I do understand, you know, both sides. I mean, I can definitely understand holding off maybe for now. I don't necessarily know till June. I don't know if we want to push it all the way out till then, but I definitely agree with after the holidays, like Nancy said. I mean, who has time to do anything right now? That book you thought you were going to read at the beginning of December, forget it. Never mind. No, that didn't happen. So I can understand that. So maybe we should maybe push it out for another, I don't know, either till the end of June or, excuse me, the end of January or even the end of February, and then or at the February meeting vote again on it or something like that.
Like that.
I'm good with that.
Maybe
Yeah.
do it on a 2
I agree with that.
Yeah. I'm
Okay,
fine with
so
that.
so
Yep.
maybe we'll postpone it through let's say the end of February, and we'll vote on it at the February meeting, whatever that happens to be. So Dina, we'll put that on the agenda for the February meeting, and then we'll vote. Maybe we'll do that on a kind of like a 2-month basis, because I think in February we'll have a better understanding about where the world, we hope, is headed, and then, you know, we can make another decision from there.
Perfect.
Does that sound like a,
Yep. Good with
like
me.
a good plan? Okay. So we need a motion for that.
I'll make a motion to suspend the fines till the end of February, and we will revisit this at the February meeting.
I second it.
Okay, all in favor by roll call. Diane,
Aye.
Nancy,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Jerry.
Oh, yes, sorry, I'm writing.
That's okay. Danielle,
Aye.
and myself, aye. Okay, so fines will be suspended until February 28th,
Perfect.
2021.
Thank you all. As I told you in my email, the staff and I were all torn about this as well because we see it from both sides.
So
And
hard.
I think that this is a great decision, and going till February is a good starting point, and revisiting in February. So we appreciate this, and like I said, the staff and I would have supported whatever you decided, but this will be great. Thank you.
Get some cheese.
Okay, the next thing on the agenda, there is no director's report, but if you have, Dina, did you have any announcements or anything?
No, I don't think so. Aside from
Nothing?
just trying to, like, the past couple of weeks between, like, redoing the schedule and then getting the budget together and trying to make some sense regarding fines. I'm like, yeah, I don't know if we're coming or going. Couldn't even finish the statistics for November for you, so I'll have those in January, the November and December statistics, and just know things have been status quo. We've been, just about the same, and still seeing those big increases in our digital collections, and I'm sure when we see December's stats, that'll continue to be a reflection. So
Did you get him?
plugging along.
Status quo is good.
Yeah, and this time I guess it is, right? Especially in this time.
Exactly. Okay, we already have our next meeting scheduled for Tuesday, January 12th at noon. Does that still work for everyone?
Yes.
That's for me right now, yeah.
Okay. Diane, does that work for you?
Yes, it does.
Okay, so then we'll have next meeting Tuesday, January 12th at 12 on Zoom. And if that changes, we'll figure it out. Otherwise, does anyone have any other questions, comments, concerns? No? Okay. Well, we hope that everyone has a Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year, Happy Holidays, and whatever else that you celebrate, and that 2021 brings a whole lot better world and situation.
Stay healthy, everyone.
Yes, healthy too,
Yes.
please.
Yeah.
So if we have no other business, we just need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second it.
All in favor by roll call. Diane,
Aye.
Nancy,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Jerry,
Aye.
Danielle,
Bye.
and myself as I. This December 22nd, 2020 meeting of the Acushnet Public Library Board of Trustees is officially adjourned. It is 12:46.
Have a good
Thank
holiday, everyone.
you.
Bye.
Bye.